We're here to talk about internet shutdowns today, in Turkey, but also worldwide. Internet shutdowns present an emerging threat to journalists, people who spread news and gather news worldwide. We're also looking at a few digital issues, including online harassment, censorship of news sites, and other issues that we've faced in Turkey. Our goal is pretty much to share our experiences in the last few years so that we can help people in other countries, as well as drawing attention to our own situation. I think, well, everyone today on our panel has some experience in journalism. We write, we do news, we do different formats of online media. The backdrop for this talk is actually our Turkey Blocks project. Isik and I work on this, but Efe and Gulsin also have helped out. They've been involved, so they can provide a different viewpoint as well. So I'll just introduce our panel today. I'm Alp Toker, founder of Turkey Blocks. This is Gulsin Harman, who has worked on issues to protect journalists. She worked with IPI in Turkey in particular. Isik Mater is the president of the Turkish Informatics Association, which is a pretty large technology community that works on digital freedom issues. And Efe Kerem is digital rights and human rights journalist who's done some amazing work to document violations of human rights in Turkey and beyond. So I'm going to hand it straight over to Isik so she can maybe explain how we got here in terms of internet shutdowns, at least. Go ahead.
Hi, I am Isik Mater from also the Turkey Blocks project. We've been monitoring shutdowns and throttling incidents in Turkey right now, and I want to talk about the correlation between the attacks and political issues and the shutdown incidents. First throttling we've been dealing was just after the Suruç explosion in July 2015, caused by 34 casualties and over 100 wounded. This incident lasted like 3 days. At that time, we didn't know what caused the slowing down of the internet, and we didn't even realize it was caused by the government. Right after that, on the 7th of September 2015, like 2 or 3 months later, Dağlıca ambush has happened. Dağlıca ambush, PKK, the Kurdish militant group, attacked on a convoy of armored vehicles of the Turkish army and killed 15 Turkish soldiers. On that day, the throttling has started and lasted like more than 48 hours. Still, on that day, we didn't sure if it was caused by the government or by the overloaded servers. And this uncertainty also was obviously affected the journalists because they didn't know what happened. They didn't realize they need to confirm about the things. Is it a shutdown? They don't know why the internet shutdown is happening. So they didn't cover the stories. This is not good for the journalists. So since they didn't have any confirmation or data, they were unable to cover the incidents. 1 month later, on the 10th of October 2015, Ankara bombing has happened. It was one of the deadliest attack in the history of Turkey, caused over more than 100 people to casualties, and almost 300 people were wounded. Just after the attack, the throttling started and lasted like more than 2 days. During the attack, my colleague Alp was in also Ankara, and that's the first time we drew attention to the throttlings. We started to share the data we monitored before the Ankara attacks to journalists, and we almost realized that the throttling is real and happened caused by the government. After Ankara attacks, we counted more than 13 shutdowns and throttling incidents related to political issues, arrests of the politics, and also the bombing attacks. Interestingly, in 2017, we haven't monitored any shutdowns yet. We don't know the reason, and we are still searching, but I personally believe that is probably related to our coming referendum campaign. And that's for now.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Isik. So I'm just going to wind back a bit in case you've entered this and you don't have shutdowns in your own country.
Yeah.
Now, shutdowns are a growing problem worldwide. And I'm just going to give you a quick example of what it's like as an internet user, as a journalist, as a reporter. When you try to, whether you're doing news gathering or reporting, whether you're using social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, to try to find sources for your information, and there's an internet shutdown, things are very difficult. It turns out that we rely a lot on the internet. So let's say Twitter. This is what Twitter is using like, what it's like to use Twitter in Turkey during a social media throttling incident, a social media slowdown incident, which is imposed by the government to restrict independent voices during national emergencies. So you can see that if it takes 20 minutes to send a single tweet, then you have a serious problem in terms of what you can do. And it turns out that information doesn't leave the source, the site of the incident, that people really can't find out what's going on. And during that period, various parties have an opportunity to control narrative in a way that may not be truthful. So the work we do actually has a huge impact on sharing the truth, countering false narratives, and protecting democratic processes as well, in the case where politicians, MPs are involved, and there are shutdowns in effect. This isn't a Turkish issue alone. It's an issue that's growing in severity and in number of incidents worldwide. This is some of the work our friends at Access Now have been doing to map shutdowns globally. As you can see, in 2015, there were 15 recorded internet shutdown incidents. 2016, you've got 56 incidents. Not all of these incidents are the same. A lot of them involve social media networks alone. Many more of them are full shutdowns of the entire internet, either affecting a region or a whole country. These full shutdowns are particularly bad because you can't use a VPN, a tunnel, to get through. There's literally a blackout. So you can't even phone people. You can't phone sources to find out what's going on. You have to infer what's going on from silence in a certain region. Now, our own work is a data-driven journalism project. So that means that we have a technology aspect. We have a software project that actually monitors internet connectivity. It's the first of its kind worldwide. And it's been successful enough that we're now deploying in other countries outside of Turkey. So it's become a bit of a flagship human rights technology project. This is, I think, in 1, 2, 3 frames, shows the workflow from going from raw data, here in JSON formats, which comes in real time from our collection network, down to the second level of normalization, which is a chart, which is very fuzzy at this point, but we try to infer what's down and what's still up, whether it's the whole internet in a region or whether it's social media. And the final output is news reporting. So this is an example from the military coup attempt in 2016, which really shows how limited information was at that point.
Yes, we're right in the middle of things right now. We're here in Istanbul. Things have moved very swiftly. In the last 2 hours, this has moved from mystery with military forces shutting down the bridges to a full-on military coup. Over the last 2 hours, we've seen reports of jets flying over, being confirmed over Ankara. We've seen helicopters ourselves flying over Istanbul here. These are military helicopters. Within the last hour, it's been confirmed that social media has been blocked, so people aren't able to share their content widely. This means Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube are offline. And the security forces have made an announcement saying they've taken control. So it seemed that whatever has happened, it's happened very swiftly.
And any word from the government? Initially, we were hearing they were denying any sort of action was taking place against them.
Well, that's right. There has been some pro-government coverage of the incident. The National Anadolu Ajans Agency has characterized some of the incidents going on involving politicians as hostage situations.
So I won't go through the whole video, but you see that a lack of information characterizes an internet shutdown. When there's something big going on, the information doesn't leave the problem area, and people have to maybe sometimes drive for half an hour or more to actually leave a region. Efe Kerem is going to talk about specific incidents in the southeast of Turkey where people had to physically move to let the world know what was going on because there was just no way to share information, which is extraordinary. 2016, 2017 that we have this situation. Like I mentioned, shutdowns affect all aspects of journalism: news gathering, production, distribution. It turns out everything we do today is driven through the internet. We don't even have, you used to have reporters with satellite phones, iridium phones. Even that is now obsolete because you have Wi-Fi, 3G everywhere. So it turns out that tools that we used to have that could allow global coverage of news incidents no longer exists. And the authorities now have absolute control over mass censorship tools to prevent reporters from doing their work. Solutions for this, very difficult. How can we push back? Turkey Blocks continues to do what it does by analyzing data and reporting the facts to the media. We've released various tools. We have an international project called NetBlocks, netblocks.org, which also deals with the same kind of issues in other countries. We've been looking at Vietnam, also we're looking at Azerbaijan and maybe Kashmir. So these tools are starting to find international uses for real-time detection and verification of censorship incidents. This is a tool we made that also shows the non-human rights aspects, which is quite useful for journalists who want to maybe explain the true cost of an internet shutdown to the economy. It takes a slice out of the GDP because people can't sell products. So this is the kind of tool that can help people report on the facts and mistruths around internet shutdowns. So I'd encourage you to check out netblocks.org, which is our international project too. So I'm going to hand it over now to Efe Kerem, who is a fantastic reporter covering all these things and adding a human touch, I think, because we're very technology-oriented. We're the geeks who provide the data. And Efe turns it into the story that the world can relate to. So go ahead, Efe.
Thank you very much. May I ask some technical assistance from you as well? Can you go to my Twitter account and then click on the docs link, the slide? Yeah, sure. Yeah, as yours. You can keep it on since you are connected. Do you have internet connection over there?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I have some slides and some tables to show to you while I am mentioning the reports that we have recently published by the University of Pennsylvania, Annenberg School of Media and Journalism had this global policy initiative, and we recently published a report about how post-coup censorship occurs in Turkey. So I would like to go over some basic facts about how we kind of reached over here and how journalists can actually fight back with this.
Is it this one?
Is it coming up? Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, this one. Okay. Well, as you can see, it's on my Twitter feed already. It's the pinned tweet, so you can go ahead and check the links. Anytime you see a yellow line over there, it's also clickable. So we can perhaps directly go to the second page. This is the report that we have recently published by the Internet Policy Observatory at University of Pennsylvania. The link is up there. You can directly go over there as well. So basically, let's give a little history. In 2007, we had the internet law in Turkey. So there were category of crimes that were defined in the law that will be automatically censored, like obscenity, like drug use, that sort of, and child pornography. There were 8 categories of crime defined that will be automatically censored. In 2008, there will be a system of ISP cooperation. Internet service providers were taught to be cooperating with the government. They were forced to be cooperating with the government to have DNS blacklists. So they will sync this blacklist with the government authorities, so that they will basically have this blacklist to be employed on the whole country. By 2011, we had the family filter. It was first to be obligatory for all users. Then it was made, well, not mandatory, but voluntary. But it was provided as a default. So for many internet users, it's the default access to internet, which, as much as we know from the leaked data, that blocks 1.5 million domain names in Turkey for any regular internet user. By 2014, we had some amendments in the internet law based on the corruption, after the corruption scandal in Turkey, and it introduced a new protection for politicians, that they can claim their personal rights are violated, they are insulted by the corruption claim, so they can impose blanket censorship on certain subjects, including the corruption scandal itself. This also coincides with the time when the Twitter was completely blocked in Turkey right before the local elections in March 2014. In 2015, we had the intensified Kurdish conflict, and this also brought another amendment to the internet law, and that was the National Security Amendment. And this allowed the government, any minister in the government, and Prime Minister's office as well, to impose direct blocking of any website within 4 hours. So this was kind of a very effective tool given to the government to block any news content on any developing news, including bombing accidents, including any military operations. And this goes also hand in hand with the gag orders given to the mainstream media, so that TV is also not able to publish this, broadcast these events, and these events won't be able to be broadcasted over the internet. And from 2016 onwards, of course, we have the state of emergency declared in Turkey after the failed coup attempt. And from then onwards, everything went south, let's put it that way. And that's where we are now. This is a table of yearly number of websites blocked in Turkey. And by the end of 2016, we passed the level of 100,000 in Turkey. And unfortunately, the source of this information was a collaborative effort called Engelli Web, which translates to blocked web in Turkey. It was a crowdsourced effort by anonymous internet activists. But unfortunately, after the coup attempt, they had to close their activities as well. And now you can only access their archive from the Internet Archive. On the next slide, we have the content removal requests by Turkey to different social media and media companies. Google, Facebook, and Twitter, the 3 most companies that blocks content in Turkey's requests. And you can also click these links from yesterday's presentation for more details on Twitter censorship, and the session video is also over there. Coming to the data that I am using from the Turkey blocks part, as you see, it's a very technically capable project. They are providing like instant updates on the accessibility of social media in Turkey. And these are the events that they reported, and I also, as a researcher, as a journalist, reported in my pieces as well. So the times of internet slowing down, throttling, after the events. So basically, in the pre-coup period, these were mainly issued after the bombing accidents. So we can perhaps define these as such. So there had been many accidents at the end of 2015 and 2016 with the intensification of the conflict, the Kurdish conflict, also with the ISIS as well. They were also doing attacks in Turkey, and with the coup attempt in the 15th of July last year, this was the throttling. So the pre-coup throttling is probably be defined by the bomb attacks. And on the second part, this is what happened after the coup attempt. And as you can see now, the reasons, or if you like, excuses to block internet is more diversified. Especially if you see towards the last parts, there are the co-mayors of Diyarbakir. Kurdish dominant Kurdish population is dominant in Diyarbakir, in the southeast of Turkey. Their mayors were forcibly removed from their offices. They were elected mayors, and more mayors then removed as well. And during these times, internet was also shut down, and nationwide social media, access to social media was throttled as well. As you go down, there are even some throttling incidents that we don't even know the reason of. And then assassination of the Russian ambassador was another reason to throttle social media access nationwide. Release of ISIS video executing Turkish soldiers was another reason. So these diversification of reasons to throttle social media access is in the post-coup period shows how government is using this more frequently for more reasons, so that they are kind of, well, let me put it this way, they are enjoying to use this tool because it's really, you know, giving all the necessary tools to themselves. So all these numbers and dates, what do they really mean? This is from November, October shutdowns in the southeast, and this is a text message received by the pharmacies in the region. In the text message, Chamber of Pharmacies, the regional Chamber of Pharmacies, asked the pharmacy shops to get a fixed IP. So normally, you know, people receive different IPs from their service providers, but they ask them to get to the ISPs, ask their ISPs to get a fixed IP number, so that they will be whitelisted, because the government by the time was enforcing a regional total internet shutdown in the region, so that if they get a fixed IP number, they will be whitelisted, so that they will keep accessing the internet to provide drugs to the you know, ill people, basically. You know, that was that level of censorship and that level of problems it was causing in the region. So when we mention you know, the money loss, the banks are not working, markets are not working. Pharmacies are even in some places were not even working, so that they try to make such a solution. By the way, this also shows how it is centralized. So in a sense, a Chamber of Pharmacies asking this information so that they can transfer it back to the Ankara, so that the Ankara government is granularly making this, you know, who will have the access to internet and who will not by IP. So this is the level of control that Turkey's government can enforce on Turkey regionally and by so. And on the next page, this shows the journalist part. These people are journalists trying to, you know, wire their stories to the newsroom back in Istanbul, back in Ankara, so that the news can be, you know, delivered to the rest of the country, the rest of the world. This is from the hospital. The hospital had a fiber connection. Compared to the rest of the offices, news offices and people's houses. So it stood because they had a fixed connection, fixed IP in the hospital. So journalists kind of sought refuge on the hospital to send their stories, actually, after gathering it on the street. And what they were gathering is on the very next slide. As you can see, people were protesting. It's, as I told you, it's a Kurdish dominant city. And people are, of course, protesting that their elected mayors are being forcibly removed from their office, and they had all the rights, as much as I'm concerned, to protest this, but they were not allowed. At least 25 people were arrested that day. Some of them were injured as well. And the police, as you may have followed from Turkey, any time of any protest, any riot will be met with excessive use of police force. And this also what has happened in the background. You can see a Toma. It's a water cannon. They are also using tear gas. They have, as you can see from lower there, they have police has the tear gas masks and everything. So this is the response that they give to an illegal act under state of emergency in Turkey. So this is what the government is trying to basically to hide, in a sense. And this is from Sertaç Kayar. He's a Reuters reporter, as you can see from. So these can be, in the end, like the next day, were wired to the news agencies. But it took a full day for everyone to hear about it, for you to as well to hear about it. And well, on a lighter note, if I may, Newswatch. When the conflict had started back in 2015, in the summer of 2015, the reporters were also being beaten, the Kurdish reporters who are reporting from the field. Their news agencies, their internet websites, their journals, printed newspapers were also being blocked. Their distributors were detained, some of them arrested. So the journalists in the Western cities got together, started this initiative, and if you have followed the yesterday's talk, there are many unemployed journalists. So for any journalist to go to Southeast from the West is also kind of a big effort, actually, because they don't really have the means to do that. They took all this initiative by themselves, not by the companies, by the outlets they are writing for. So they are not covered. So they did all their well, one before still. Thank you. They took all the risks themselves, and in the end they kept this for three weeks, so 3 months. So they kept reporting from going there group by group, doing the reporting by the local journalists, and then. Right now they have two very important Twitter accounts. One is Ben Gazeteciyim, it's in Turkish, and the second one is Journos in Turkey. You can follow them if you are using Twitter. And this is how this all converted into an initiative by journalists for journalists, but all for your right to information, actually. So this is all I have for now. All these links you can check from the. I mean, if you missed, you can check from the from my timeline and so read the report as well.
That's
Thank
the
you.
tapestry around internet shutdowns. Some of these are individual censorship incidents, but they all interplay. It's the same courts, it's the same people imposing these, and I think we do need to push back together as a whole front. So next up is Gulsin Harman. She's notable journalist from Turkey who's now working on media freedom, press freedom, with various groups. She's done some work on online harassment against journalists together with the IPI. She's also been helping with the Turkey Blocks project, so I'll hand it over to Gulsin. That should work.
Sorry. Well, you may wonder that why the panel is so interested and so obsessed about internet. Well, of course, in the year of 2017, it's not a very unfamiliar question. But the internet is crucial in Turkey for journalists, for right to information, for various reasons. To put things more in context, so for a normal democracy, normal functioning democracy with institutions and press freedom, of course, internet provides a very important ways to explain things and to reach audiences, etc. But in Turkey, we may say that the internet and mostly social media, now it is not the primary or most preferred way to reach people. It is the unique source to disseminate news and to get the news. So in that framework, the shutdown that Efe, Isik, and Efe, Isik, and Alp were mentioning, it has a very important component for press freedom. Because, for example, after all this, and from Isik talks, you would understand that the major shutdowns and throttling in Turkey happens after a major terrorist attack. In the immediate aftermath of a terrorist attack, you would expect all channels of information coming from the government, coming from the police, coming from the security forces would be open, and the honest and the fast communication will be provided to the citizens. But in Turkey, the exactly opposite of it takes place. After the immediate in the immediate aftermath of the attack, you see that the Facebook is down. Twitter is impossible, basically impossible to get your news on Twitter, even login. It's an issue. So you are left in a total darkness to find out what happened and what will be next. And for example, even the number of the casualties, what are the kind of the precautions that have been taken, you cannot reach this news. And what follows, a major terrorist attack in Turkey after this blackout of information, is the online harassment. So last year I did a project with the International Press Institute called On the Line. We have tracked down the digital attacks against Turkish journalists. And among the digital attacks, we also included online harassment. We defined online harassment as threats of rape, especially for, as you can guess, for female journalists, threats of murder, smear campaigns, hackings of personal accounts, doxing of personal information, and blockings, very widely. So online harassment in Turkey, in addition to a picture of where internet and social media has becoming a tool of, and yet another tool of oppression in the hands of the government, online harassment adds a very important aspect of a total censorship atmosphere. For the journalists, for Turkish journalists, online harassment has been a very long-standing issue, but like everything else, after the failed coup d'etat attempt in the summer of the 2016, it got worse. So the online harassment that you are getting after a major terrorist attack goes like this, for the journalists and for the ordinary citizens also. If you even dare to question the very reasons of why such an attack happened, is it because the government's policy about Syria? Is it about the government's policy on the Kurdish issue and various other important topics in Turkey? You will immediately, if you are especially a famous and very prominent journalist, you will be swarmed by an attack of social media users. Sometimes they are coming in the form of bots also. And you should be ready to be denounced as a traitor, as a spy, as a foreign agent, as someone who wants to shake up Turkey, overthrow the government, and many other accusations follow. So in a country that since the summer of 2016, since the failed coup d'etat, more than 190 media outlets has been shut down. The mainstream media is basically, I would call it pro-government. So the independent news outlets, independent journalists are struggling to find outlets to reach people. And in that term, the internet shutdowns, the online harassment, companies or ISPs, service providers complying with the government's requests of censorship have an enormous effect on the press freedom atmosphere in Turkey. And as the Turkey is heading more and more in a polarized debate that we are only 1 week away from a presidential referendum, which will be very crucial and a determined point in Turkish history, more and more we are in a polarized society when even the very basic right to declare your opinion, the freedom of expression is in danger, and it was for the journalists beforehand, but now it has come to the ordinary citizens also. She is not here with us today, but Aslı Telli Aydemir, a very important Turkish academician working on this issue. She calls it the informant netizen. More and more you find out ordinary Turkish citizens, I'm not talking about the trolls who are paid, more and more these voluntary citizens are acting on their own to denounce any kind of comment, opinion, argument they consider as treacherous, consider as a terrorist propaganda. And in Turkey now, I think that now it's even more, because in December, the number was 10,000 people who are actually under investigation in Turkey for their comments on social media. So I'm sure that the number has risen. And so one more time again to say that in Turkey it matters a lot. Internet matters to us of course it matters to Europeans, to Americans, and to all the world. But internet remains for us a very, very important source and the unique source to get the news, to disseminate the news. And any censorship attempt on it has a very important effects and deep and long-lasting effects on the other press freedom issues. So thanks for listening.
Right, so we've really looked at a full range of issues around shutdowns, both in the context of Turkey and the nearby region. I'm going to open it up for questions in a little bit. Just before then, I'm going to point you at a few resources that are quite useful for tracking incidents of shutdowns internationally. And you might be surprised by some of the countries that are affected. Now, we have the Mapping Media Freedom Project, Mapping Media Freedom, which is from Index on Censorship. So this is really a fantastic resource. It covers a whole range of censorship incidents, not just shutdowns. I mean, it covers everything from closures of media outlets worldwide to attacks on journalists, physical attacks, abuse attacks, but it does also cover internet shutdowns, especially where they affect the media, where they affect media outlets and coverage of incidents. So they have a map, they have an index of incidents, and it's something, it does take a couple of days for things to show up there, but it's a very useful archive, which can complement real-time feeds like our own at Turkey Blocks. There's also Access Now, which is an international community for pushing back against shutdowns. That's the Keep It On campaign. So keep it on. Let's see if it loads. Yeah. So there are a great deal of organizations, some like ours, some more technology-oriented, some more news-oriented, in countries across all continents which are pushing back against internet shutdowns. Like I mentioned before, some of the arguments are financial, economical, because it harms the economy. Other reasons are human rights-based, because it masks human rights violations, attacks on people, individuals, and large communities. So wherever you are, it's worth looking at these resources. So I thought it would be quite interesting if we could take some questions. You can address specific people on the board, or you can address us all, but do keep it journalism related and not too long.
Thank you. Hi, I was wondering, you mentioned the referendum that's set for next week that's happening, and it's, if the vote swings yes, it could be quite, I guess, historic and changing in Turkey's path. I want to know what do you see would happen if they swing yes, I guess, for the referendum? What does it mean for internet access, and would there be more further internet shutdowns?
Do you want to deepen a little bit? Isik or Efe? Okay, Efe.
Oh, sorry. Well, basically what we have been experiencing since the last summer is the state of emergency, and many experts are kind of forecasting if the yes vote passes and Erdogan, today's president, gets even more extensive powers, then the state of emergency will be permanent, will be continuous for years to come. So that's the biggest concern. But we must warn you that even the no vote wins, it's not like a bright future either. Turkey has lost many on the parts of on the grounds of rule of law. So unfortunately, we don't have independent, impartial courts in Turkey. So the things will not be fixed right away. But in terms of internet access, the yes vote, the extension of powers to Erdogan will be certainly a downfall, even a more direct, more fast downfall, unfortunately.
Two related questions, actually, any additional information. One is something that you haven't touched upon, and Gulsin Harman mentioned Syria policy, Kurdish policy as two major causes, but there's a third cause, the corruption coverage. And the most recent spectacular case was the Red Hack issue, which a group of journalists, including the Die Welt correspondent Deniz Yücel, ended up in jail for. And just give the audience brief information about how these journalists were targeted and how they were sort of tracked in this activity of journalism. And second question is, in general, how do the Turkish journalists cope under these circumstances? What kind of tools they use, and what are the methods, particularly in the areas where the throttling is so intense, and in both in GSM, mobile, and also in internet, because we know that GSM providers are also being abused by the powers.
So this is a question for Efe, but before I hand it over, the data we're collecting does cover mobile networks now as well as fixed lines, and mobile is more important than fixed line in a way. So, you know, Efe has covered that incident in particular.
So I will start with the first one. I am actually one of the reporters who covered the recent email leak. If you haven't followed, that's also on the WikiLeaks as well, the whole email leak. The email leak is about Erdogan's son-in-law, who is also the country's energy minister. His email archive, the whole archive, personal email archive, was leaked back in October, and we have covered with a handful of journalists. Except me, all of the prominent journalists who covered this basically were caught in Turkey, and they are in jail, including the Die Welt, the German Die Welt's correspondent, Turkey correspondent, Deniz Yücel, who is a dual citizen. He is also Turkish citizen, so the Turkish law also applies to him directly. So that's very, very, very unfortunate, but as it goes with many other cases, they were detained based on these allegations that they were reporting on these incidents, and they were asked in the first place about the Red Hack leak, whether they were part of Red Hack or whether they were themselves the Red Hack. But then the indictment suddenly changed, as it happens in Turkey. The prosecutor suddenly asked, put on an indictment about whether they were supporting terrorist groups in Turkey, especially on Deniz Yücel's case. This was led by the President Erdogan himself. He publicly accused Deniz Yücel to be a German spy. He accused Deniz Yücel to be a PKK terrorist member. And most of the other journalists who are accused of terrorism in Turkey are actually accused of terror propaganda. So the story goes, the indictment goes, that they were supporting terrorism by their news coverage that is critical to Turkey. So when you criticize the Turkish government, you play to the hands of the terrorists. That's the discourse that the government provides. The second question, perhaps one of the examples as I give is the journalist support, solidarity in a sense. One particular case was the case of Nurcan Baysal. During this shutdown, there was no picture of her doing that, but perhaps that's a nice story to tell. The internet GSM network was down. Only the phone calls can be made in Diyarbakir. So what she did was she took her car, left Diyarbakir, she went on to Batman highway. There were some companies over there who also use fiber internet connection. So she went over there, kept the phone line with her colleagues in the city center while the police was cracking down on the protesters and removing the officers, removing the elected mayors. So she kept on receiving updates from her colleagues, and she kept on tweeting in the meantime. So in a sense, in an indirect sense, she wasn't able to, send any photos or so, but she was able to update us about what's going on from the reliable sources. And this is also what the readers are also doing, in a sense. We are kind of curating our own kind of personal journals via Twitter. We are, relying on these journalists, and they are relying on each other, so that we can get this. As Gulsin beautifully put, it's a unique source of information. That's why it is important. That's why these very brave people are still doing this, and this is how we are trying to get information.
I asked you this question even yesterday, but I'd like to ask you again. About the role of Gulen. What do you think about of this figure and especially in the coup of last summer. Thank you.
We will be all really grateful to limit the questions and the discussions to really questions about journalism. It's a highly very political question, and this is not our topic today.
Can we take one from the back, maybe? Yes.
So I'd like to ask you, I remember that in the autumn of 2015, during the elections in that period, there was this nice initiative in Bilgi University where students were collecting real-time data about statistics on votes. And all in a while, they realized that the websites were being throttled, so it slowed down, and the fear in that moment was that voters themselves could be influenced by not receiving real-time data on the results of the election. So do you think in this time as well, in this referendum, it could happen again? And do you agree with that, that if people during elections don't receive real-time data on the results, then they will be more likely to change their mind this day itself of the elections? And could it happen?
This is a really good question. And we found that real-time matters in every form of data, whether it's shutdown data, election data. Now, you said there might have been an incident during that election. We weren't able to verify. We were just getting started then. So I would stress that that isn't a confirmed incident. And we do have to be careful to make that distinction between cases where we have actual data that really points the finger at, say, authorities or providers versus something that looks a bit suspicious, whether it's a power cut or a site that isn't accessible. But yes, I think that, yeah.
Oh, sorry. One thing to add. There were two main news agencies that has a full national cover in Turkey. One of them was seized, and it's now shut. I mean, it's now in the hands of the government, basically. And the Kurdish news agencies, who has the most, who has the best cover in the southeast part, where the Kurdish population is dominant, is also shut down. So right now we only have one, which is the national state agency, news agency, and of course, I mean, we have to, we have the election observers to count on all the results too, but the reporting of it is now at the hands of the government totally. So this is a very serious concern in terms of free elections, which includes the campaigning part as well. So it's a very serious concern that is related to the ownership of the media in Turkey, control of the voices in Turkey, and how the campaigning can be made in Turkey.
So Gulsin has something to add?
I have a small note to add. If you are interested in the online harassment, how the trolls work in Turkey, and the other various ways of to intimidate journalists online, tomorrow at 2 p.m. in this room, International Press Institute will hold an event called Online Harassment, the New Tools of Patriotic Populism, and you are very welcome to attend. And also after the panel, there will be some stickers for International Press Institute's campaign, Free Turkey Journalists. You can get them from the table. Thank you.
So we have time for, I think, one last short question.
Just a quick question. You guys mentioned that when there's an incident where the government shuts down Twitter and Facebook and whatever means of communication with the public for either the medical assistance or whatever. Is there any other means where the government can spread their propaganda to people of what's happening, or is the public kept in the dark completely?
The reason of the control is to control the message. The reason that the networks are down, and the gag orders also follow the same line. So you cannot see news on Twitter, Facebook, but you cannot also see it in the TV. Then it takes 2 or 3 hours for you as a viewer in Turkey to see a government officer comes in front and says that Turkey is very strong and we will overcome this too. So in a sense, when you are in a crisis, instead of, you know, how horrible it is, how the security forces, you know, failed to stop this attack, how the emergency forces were too late to, you know, to help the needy. Instead of all this, you kept in dark. You don't know what happens for a few hours. Then you have, then you see a, you know, perfect gentleman coming into you and give you, you know, trust to the government. So this is how the message is controlled. It's not about, you are not hearing about it for a few hours. It's about how the news are provided to you. It will be provided by a government agency to you the way they want to do. So this is what it's all about.
Great. So don't hesitate to come to us if you have any more questions. I think whether it's technology or news related, just drop by, say hi. Thank you very much for the great questions.